if you find a family of refugees, if we knew we could only let in 200,000 refugees, say, in any given year into the U.S., to learn that this set of 100,000 refugees were all Christians coming from these war-torn areas in the Middle East or in sub-Saharan Africa, well, that would be relevant information. Insofar as we could actually know that they're Christians, that would be good news, because what we're worried about now at this moment in history are the jihadists we might be inadvertently importing. Now, to say that, as many Christocentric bigots would also say, is on the left tantamount to an expression of Islamophobia and, bizarrely, racism. But it is not an irrational preference. If you want 100% of jihadists are Muslim, right? To not admit that is to be just tongue-tied by your own masochism and white guilt, and to have been browbeaten by people arguing in bad faith. So the truth is, we really do want to know what people believe, and the question, how many more jihadists do you want in your society? The answer to that is always zero. Right? It has to be zero. And so we have to argue about beliefs. We have to find out, insofar as that's possible, what people believe. We can't just treat it like it's the left side of the road. The left side of the road is good for you. The right side of the road is good for me. We just have to agree to disagree across borders, but within our borders, we have to stipulate that one thing works and the other doesn't. It's a bigger problem than that. We know that we are right to, insofar as it is possible, to go into Afghanistan and stop the Taliban from mistreating their girls, because they're not their girls, right? They're just girls who are unlucky to be born in Afghanistan.
Yeah, but Sam, I have to say that this is a rare point where I actually find that I'm in pretty serious disagreement with some of the things that you asserted without proof, which were that compassion for others in less fortunate circumstances, some sort of Rawlsian veil, should be treated with visas and citizenship. And
well, no, I'm not saying it's pragmatic to do it. I'm saying that's the tension here, because what I also fear, I think, is that if we did, so what would be the consequences of opening our borders? Let's say compassion won. Let's say we said, yes, there's no way to defend this disparity in good luck that we find ourselves enjoying here in Sydney, say. So we just open the borders to the rest of the world. What happens? I fear there that you'll have uncontained immigration to the point where there's simply, life gets bad enough in places like Sydney that there's no longer any reason to immigrate, right? So that it's like there's some perverse osmosis that we would witness, where everything is brought down to the lowest common denominator. We don't want that. So obviously, we can be selfish enough to defend our way of life in the face of that.
Selfish. I mean, like the language to me is so distorted.
How much credit do you want to be given for being born where you were born in a context that was free of civil war?
I'm luckier than some and less luckier than others, and that is a part of the human existence. I don't believe that I have an obligation to reshuffle the world according to luck. I mean, no part of natural selection.
It's not an obligation, I'm just saying, but this is what makes the Douglas's starting point hard to parse, because given enough information, right, you meet the little girl. I mean, this is what happened to Angela Merkel. Like, someone brought the little girl right up to her. I mean, the little girl herself, I think, said, why are you keeping my family out, right? And that just overwhelmed, her
but any triage
empathy circuits.
Yes, I don't know how to say this, that the horror of the human condition and the beauty of the human condition are things that we have to accept. And what terrifies me is this sort of simplistic compassion that we have for erasing these differences. I mean, I didn't build the differences in. I don't necessarily like the differences, but I know that, for example, if I brought everybody in Bangladesh and India up to US levels of prosperity, I'd have an ecological disaster, right? And so does that mean we're obligated to stop producing? Maybe. I'm certainly open to these discussions, but what concerns me is that the level of analysis is not equal to the problem that presents itself. That somehow we have become simplistically compassionate. And I don't want to give up the compassion. I want to give up the simplicity.
So I think we have to actually go back to Majid's question about one culture being better than another. Because actually, once you tease that apart, some of these other issues become clearer. So there's one way in which it actually is impossible that one culture is better than another. It's like asking, are fig trees better than elephants? That question does not compute, right? You can't
No, they
answer.
are not. Elephants are amazing.
Well,
I'm with Josh here.
yeah.
Figophobic.
All right, I could pick a better example than fig trees, apparently. But nonetheless, the point is, at one level, all cultures are an evolutionary response to some circumstances. And in those circumstances, they are liable to be best. When we compare them under arbitrary circumstances, we've got a very different puzzle.
But you're privileging survival over human well-being.
No, I'm saying this is the least important fact about it. So we can say Inuit culture is surely best for the Arctic, right? If we took Aboriginal culture to the Arctic, it would last all of, an hour. So the idea is they're all equal. There is a justification for that claim, but that claim is trivial. And then there's a question about differences like the ones Eric points to, which are arbitrary. Which side of the road do you drive on? It doesn't really matter. There's not a better side of the road, but you've got to agree. And then there are places where there is actual betterness. But that betterness comes from an entirely different realm. That betterness comes from a place where we've actually agreed on values. In other words, we've said, this is something we would like to see more of, and then once we specify what this thing is that we would like to see more of, then we can say, well, this system produces more of it than that system. So, for example...
Or less of as well.
Sure. But if we take, for example, the difference between a polygynous system and a monogamous system, is one better than the other? No, they both evolve under different circumstances. But one is better if what you want to do is reduce violence and the tendency towards warfare. So there is no objective way in which we can claim that warfare is bad and that violence is bad. But of course, everybody in the room would probably agree that they are bad from some other perspective, which is the values that we all share, which then goes to Sam's point. So if we can get to a conversation where whatever group of people it is that is trying to govern itself can agree on the values that it would like to see maximized, then we can have the conversation about what the cultural structures are that produce those values.